Before the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex ever roamed the earth, before the long-necked Brontosaurus grazed in ancient forests, before any dinosaur had even drawn its first breath, our planet was ruled by creatures so terrifying, so alien, that they would make even the most fearsome predators of the Jurassic period seem tame by comparison. Welcome to Ancient Dreamser, where we journey into the deepest mysteries of our planet's forgotten past. What I'm about to reveal to you will completely change how you think about prehistoric life. For over 300 million years before the first dinosaur appeared, Earth was dominated by monsters that defy imagination. Creatures with razor-sharp spines covering their entire bodies, predators that could slice through bone with serrated fins, and nightmarish beasts that lurked in primordial seas with jaws capable of crushing anything in their path. Scientists have only recently begun to uncover the true scope of these ancient terrors, and what they've discovered is more shocking than any Hollywood monster movie. We're talking about real creatures that once ruled this planet, predators so successful that they dominated Earth's ecosystems for hundreds of millions of years. These weren't just big fish or oversized lizards. These were evolutionary masterpieces, perfectly designed killing machines that make modern sharks look like goldfish. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind. Many of these creatures grew to sizes that dwarf even the largest dinosaurs. Some reached lengths of over 60 feet, with teeth the size of railroad spikes and armor plating thicker than medieval shields. And the most terrifying part? They didn't just swim in the oceans. Some of these monsters could walk on land, hunt in packs, and even fly through ancient skies with wingspans that blocked out the sun. In this video, I'm going to take you on a journey through the most nightmarish period in Earth's history, a time when our planet was ruled by creatures so bizarre and terrifying that they seem like they belong in another dimension entirely. We'll explore the Permian monsters that made the oceans run red with blood, the Devonian nightmares that turned rivers into killing fields, and the Cambrian horrors that first brought the concept of predation to our world. What makes this story even more incredible is that for over a century, scientists completely underestimated these ancient beasts. They thought they were primitive, simple creatures that evolution had long since improved upon. But cutting-edge research using advanced CT scanning, computer modeling, and biomechanical analysis has revealed the shocking truth. These weren't primitive animals stumbling through evolutionary dead ends. They were sophisticated predators, perfectly adapted to their environments, with hunting strategies more complex than anything we see in nature today. I've spent months researching this topic, diving deep into the latest paleontological discoveries, consulting with leading experts in prehistoric life, and uncovering fossils that most people have never heard of. What I found was so disturbing, so fundamentally shocking, that it kept me awake at night. Because when you truly understand what ruled this planet before the dinosaurs, you realize just how fragile our existence really is. The story begins over 540 million years ago, during a period scientists call the Cambrian explosion. This was when life on Earth suddenly, almost overnight in geological terms, became complex and diverse. But what most people don't realize is that this explosion wasn't just about the emergence of new life forms. It was about the birth of predation itself. For billions of years, Earth had been populated by simple, peaceful organisms that fed on bacteria and organic matter. But during the Cambrian, something changed. Something dark awakened in the primordial seas. The first monster to emerge from this ancient nightmare was a creature called Anomalocaris. At over 6 feet long, it was absolutely massive for its time, dwarfing every other living thing in the ocean. But size wasn't its most terrifying feature. This beast had 2 enormous appendages extending from its head, each one lined with sharp spines and capable of grasping prey with crushing force. Its mouth was a circular nightmare, ringed with razor-sharp teeth that could slice through the hardest shells like they were made of paper. Anomalocaris wasn't just big and scary, it was intelligent. Fossil evidence shows that this creature had compound eyes larger than dinner plates, giving it vision far superior to any modern predator. It could spot prey from incredible distances and track movement with deadly precision. When it attacked, its flexible arms would wrap around victims, pulling them toward that circular maw where they would be systematically dismantled alive. But Anomalocaris was just the beginning. As we move forward through deep time, the monsters only get more terrifying. During the Ordovician period, around 470 million years ago, the seas were ruled by creatures that would make Anomalocaris look like a harmless minnow. Giant nautiloids with shells over 20 feet long cruised the ancient oceans like living submarines. These weren't the small, docile nautiluses we see today. These were active predators with tentacles strong enough to crush trilobites and jaws powerful enough to bite through solid rock. The largest of these nautiloid monsters was Camaracaras, a beast so massive that its shell alone was longer than a school bus. Inside that shell lived a creature with tentacles covered in hooks and suckers, each one capable of grasping and manipulating prey with frightening dexterity. When Camaracaras hunted, it would rise from the depths like a nightmare, its tentacles spreading out like the arms of some ancient sea demon. Nothing in the ocean was safe from its grasp. These giant nautiloids weren't solitary hunters either. Fossil evidence suggests they may have hunted in coordinated groups, working together to corner and overwhelm prey. Imagine a pack of these monsters, each one the size of a modern whale, coordinating their attacks with intelligence and precision. The ancient seas would have been turned into a killing field where smaller creatures had nowhere to hide. As terrifying as these early predators were, they pale in comparison to what came next. The Devonian period, beginning around 419 million years ago, is often called the Age of Fishes. But calling it that is like calling World War II a minor disagreement. This was the age of aquatic monsters, a time when the oceans were filled with predators so large and so vicious that they turned the entire planet into a battleground. The undisputed king of this underwater hell was Dunkleosteus, a creature so terrifying that its very name sends chills down the spines of paleontologists. This wasn't technically a fish as we understand them today. It was something far more primitive and far more deadly. Instead of teeth, Dunkleosteus had bony plates in its jaws that were sharp as razors and harder than steel. These plates could slice through bone, shell, and armor with a bite force that exceeded 5,000 pounds per square inch. To put that in perspective, that's stronger than the bite of a Tyrannosaurus rex. But the truly horrifying thing about Dunkleosteus wasn't just its bite. It was the speed at which it could open and close its jaws. Biomechanical studies have shown that this monster could snap its mouth shut in just 20 milliseconds, creating a suction force so powerful that it would literally vacuum smaller fish into its waiting maw. Prey wouldn't even see it coming. One moment they'd be swimming peacefully, the next they'd be trapped inside the mouth of a nightmare. Dunkleosteus grew to lengths of over 30 feet, making it larger than most modern great white sharks. But unlike sharks, which are relatively fragile creatures, Dunkleosteus was armored like a living tank. Its head and neck were covered in thick, bony plates that could deflect attacks from even the most determined predators. This armor wasn't just for protection either. The weight of these plates allowed Dunkleosteus to control its buoyancy with precision, rising and sinking through the water column to ambush unsuspecting prey from above or below. The fossil record shows us that Dunkleosteus wasn't a picky eater. Paleontologists have found evidence that these monsters were cannibalistic, regularly feeding on their own kind when other prey became scarce. They've discovered fossilized Dunkleosteus skulls with bite marks from other Dunkleosteus, showing that these creatures would attack anything that moved, even their own species. Living alongside Dunkleosteus were other nightmare creatures that would make modern horror movies seem tame. There was Helicoprion, a shark-like predator with a lower jaw that formed a bizarre spiral of teeth. This tooth spiral, called a whorl, contained dozens of razor-sharp teeth arranged in a pattern that still puzzles scientists today. When Helicoprion attacked, it would slash at its prey with this spiral of death, creating wounds that would never heal. The most disturbing aspect of Helicoprion wasn't just its bizarre appearance. Recent computer modeling has revealed exactly how this creature used its spiral of teeth, and the results are stomach-churning. When Helicoprion caught prey, it would position the victim against its tooth whirl and then rotate its jaw, essentially using its teeth like a circular saw to slice through flesh and bone. The spiral design meant that as old teeth wore down, new ones would move into position, creating a self-sharpening blade that never dulled. But even Helicoprion pales in comparison to the true apex predator of the Devonian seas. Meet Titanichthys, a monster so large that its fossilized skull alone is over 6 feet long. This creature reached lengths of nearly 25 feet, but what made it truly terrifying wasn't its size, it was its feeding strategy. Unlike other predators that actively hunted their prey, Titanichthys was a filter feeder, but not in the way you might imagine. This beast would swim through schools of smaller fish with its massive mouth wide open, creating a suction vortex that would pull in everything within a 50-foot radius. Imagine being a small fish in those ancient seas, swimming in what you think is safety, only to suddenly feel an irresistible pull drawing you towards certain death. The water around you would begin to swirl and rush as you're dragged helplessly toward the gaping maw of Titanichthys. There would be no escape, no chance to fight back. You would simply disappear into the darkness of its throat along with thousands of your companions. The Devonian period also gave birth to the first truly massive arthropods, creatures that would make modern lobsters and crabs look like toys. Jacalopterus was a sea scorpion that reached lengths of over 8 feet, armed with claws that could crush a human skull like an eggshell. These weren't the docile bottom dwellers we might imagine. Jacalopterus was an active predator, capable of swimming at high speeds and striking with lightning precision. What makes Jacalopterus particularly nightmarish is that it possessed compound eyes similar to those of modern insects, but scaled up to terrifying proportions. Each eye contained thousands of individual lenses, giving this creature nearly 360-degree vision and the ability to detect even the slightest movement in murky water. When it hunted, Jacalopterus would use its powerful tail to propel itself through the water like a living torpedo, its massive claws extended and ready to grab anything that moved. But the true horror of these ancient arthropods becomes apparent when you realize they weren't confined to the water. As the Devonian period progressed, some of these monsters began venturing onto land. Pulmonoscorpius was a terrestrial scorpion that grew to lengths of over 3 feet, with claws powerful enough to snap bones and a stinger filled with venom potent enough to kill creatures many times its size. The fossil evidence suggests that Pulmonoscorpius may have been one of the first land animals to hunt in coordinated groups. Paleontologists have discovered multiple specimens buried together, their claws interlocked as if they died while fighting over prey. This indicates a level of social behavior and intelligence that we rarely associate with arthropods today. As we journey deeper into Earth's prehistoric nightmare, we encounter the Carboniferous period, a time when our planet was covered in vast swampy forests and the atmosphere contained far more oxygen than it does today. This oxygen-rich environment allowed arthropods to grow to absolutely gigantic proportions, creating some of the most horrifying land predators our planet has ever seen. Arthropleura was a millipede-like creature that reached lengths of over 8 feet and stood nearly 3 feet tall. With its segmented body covered in thick armor plating and hundreds of powerful legs, Arthropleura looked like something that had crawled out of humanity's darkest nightmares. While some scientists believe it was primarily herbivorous, recent fossil discoveries have revealed modified mouthparts that suggest at least some species were capable of tearing flesh. The thought of encountering an 8-foot-long armored millipede in the dense Carboniferous forests is terrifying enough, but Arthropleura wasn't alone. The skies above were patrolled by Meganeura, a dragonfly with a wingspan of over 2 feet. These weren't the delicate insects we see today. Meganeura was an aerial predator with compound eyes the size of tennis balls and mandibles powerful enough to crunch through the exoskeletons of smaller arthropods. When Meganeura hunted, it would hover above the forest canopy like a living helicopter, using its massive eyes to scan for movement below. Once it spotted prey, it would dive at incredible speeds, its 6 legs extended to form a cage-like trap that would snare victims in mid-flight. The captured prey would then be carried to a secluded perch where Meganeura would systematically dismember it alive. But even these giants were dwarfed by the true monsters of the Carboniferous swamps. Deep in the murky waters lurked Proterogyrinus, an early amphibian that reached lengths of over 10 feet. This wasn't the harmless salamander-like creature you might imagine. Proterogyrinus was an apex predator with a skull nearly 3 feet long, filled with razor-sharp teeth designed for catching and holding struggling prey. What made Proterogyrinus particularly terrifying was its hunting strategy. Unlike modern crocodiles that ambush from the surface, this monster would lurk completely submerged in the dark water, using specialized sensory organs to detect the slightest vibration. When an unsuspecting animal came to drink, Proterogyrinus would explode from the depths with such force that it could launch its entire body out of the water. The bite force of Proterogyrinus has been calculated at over 3,000 pounds per square inch, powerful enough to crush the bones of any creature unfortunate enough to end up in its jaws. But perhaps most disturbing of all, fossil evidence suggests that Proterogyrinus may have been capable of surviving on land for extended periods, meaning that no environment was truly safe from this prehistoric nightmare. As the Carboniferous period gave way to the Permian, Earth's monsters reached their absolute peak of size and ferocity. The Permian period, lasting from 299 to 252 million years ago, represents the final act in the reign of these ancient terrors. It was during this time that evolution produced some of the most successful and frightening predators our planet has ever known. The undisputed ruler of the Permian world was Gorgonopsid, a group of predators so efficient and deadly that they dominated terrestrial ecosystems for over 40 million years. These weren't reptiles or mammals as we understand them today. They were something else entirely, a unique evolutionary experiment that combined the best predatory features from multiple animal groups. The largest of the Gorgonopsids was Inostrancevia, a creature that reached lengths of over 11 feet and possessed canine teeth that were longer than kitchen knives. These weren't simple stabbing weapons either. The teeth of Inostrancevia were serrated like steak knives, designed to slice through flesh and muscle with surgical precision. When this monster bit down on prey, it wouldn't just puncture vital organs, it would systematically shred them. But what truly sets Inostrancevia apart from other prehistoric predators was its intelligence and social behavior. Fossil trackways show that these creatures may have hunted in coordinated packs, working together to bring down prey many times their individual size. They possessed forward-facing eyes that provided excellent depth perception, and their brain-to-body ratio was remarkably high for creatures of their time period. The hunting strategy of Inostrancevia was as sophisticated as it was terrifying. Pack members would spread out to surround their target, using complex vocalizations to coordinate their attack. When the moment was right, they would strike simultaneously from multiple directions, their massive canine teeth delivering wounds that would cause their prey to bleed out within minutes. Living alongside these terrestrial nightmares were aquatic monsters that made even Dunkleosteus seem small by comparison. The Permian seas were ruled by creatures like Helicoprion, but an even more terrifying relative called Parahelicoprion. This monster reached lengths of over 40 feet and possessed not one, but multiple tooth whorls arranged throughout its massive jaws. When Parahelicoprion attacked, it was like being caught in a living blender. The creature would grab prey with its front teeth, while the multiple whorls would rotate independently, creating a cutting action that could slice through bone and shell simultaneously. Nothing in the Permian oceans was safe from this mechanical nightmare, and fossil evidence suggests that Parahelicoprion may have been capable of attacking prey as large as early whales. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Permian predators was their sheer diversity and specialization. Evolution had created monsters perfectly adapted to every conceivable hunting strategy and environmental niche. There were burrowing predators with diamond-hard claws, aerial hunters with razor-sharp talons, and aquatic nightmares with bioluminescent lures that would draw prey into striking range. The fossil record from this period reads like a catalogue of humanity's worst nightmares made real. These weren't random evolutionary accidents or primitive dead ends. They were the result of hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary refinement, creating killing machines more efficient and deadly than anything our modern world has ever produced. The reign of these Permian monsters came to an abrupt and catastrophic end 252 million years ago during what scientists call the Great Dying. This wasn't just another mass extinction event. It was the closest life on Earth has ever come to complete annihilation. Over 96% of all marine species vanished forever, along with 70% of terrestrial life. The monsters that had ruled our planet for hundreds of millions of years were wiped out in what may have been the most violent period in Earth's history. But what caused this apocalyptic event that ended the age of prehistoric nightmares? Recent research has revealed a story so terrifying that it makes the extinction of the dinosaurs seem gentle by comparison. Deep beneath what is now Siberia, massive volcanic eruptions began spewing toxic gases and molten rock into the atmosphere. These weren't ordinary volcanoes. They were supervolcanic events that continued for nearly 2 million years, poisoning the air, acidifying the oceans, and turning Earth into a hellscape where even the most adaptable creatures couldn't survive. The Siberian traps, as scientists call this volcanic region, released enough toxic gas to fill the entire atmosphere with hydrogen sulfide and sulfur dioxide. The oceans became so acidic that they literally dissolved the shells and bones of marine creatures. On land, acid rain fell continuously for millennia, stripping the flesh from any animal caught in the open. Even the mighty gorgonopsids, with all their intelligence and adaptability, couldn't survive in a world where the very air had become poison. Yet as these ancient monsters died out, they left behind something far more disturbing than just fossil remains. They had fundamentally changed the rules of life on Earth. Before their reign, our planet was populated by peaceful creatures that lived in harmony with their environment. But the age of monsters had introduced concepts that would forever alter the course of evolution. Predation, competition, and survival of the fittest became the driving forces that would shape every living thing that followed. The legacy of these prehistoric nightmares can be seen in every modern predator. The hunting strategies of great white sharks, the pack behavior of wolves, even the intelligence of human beings, all trace their origins back to innovations first developed by creatures that lived hundreds of millions of years ago. We are not separate from these ancient monsters. We are their direct descendants, carrying their predatory instincts in our very DNA. But here's where the story takes an even more chilling turn. As paleontologists continue to excavate fossil sites around the world, they're discovering that our understanding of these prehistoric nightmares has only scratched the surface. In remote locations across the globe, scientists are unearthing evidence of creatures so bizarre and terrifying that they challenge everything we thought we knew about ancient life. In the Australian outback, researchers have discovered fossilized trackways that suggest the existence of land predators over 50 feet in length. These aren't dinosaur tracks. They predate the first dinosaurs by over 100 million years. The spacing between footprints indicates a creature with a stride length that would make it capable of outrunning most modern vehicles. But most disturbing of all, the tracks show evidence of intelligence. They follow complex hunting patterns, demonstrate tactical thinking, and show coordination between multiple individuals. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, Brazilian paleontologists have uncovered partial fossils of what appears to be an amphibious predator, with adaptations never before seen in the fossil record. This creature possessed both gills and primitive lungs, allowing it to hunt effectively in water or on land. But what makes it truly nightmarish is its feeding apparatus. Instead of traditional teeth, this monster had rows of hollow spines that could inject digestive enzymes directly into its prey, essentially liquefying victims from the inside out. The discovery was made even more unsettling when researchers realized that the fossil site contained hundreds of smaller skeletons, all showing signs of having been dissolved from within. This suggests that the creature didn't just kill for food. It may have been storing live prey in underwater chambers, keeping them fresh by slowly digesting them over extended periods. In the depths of Greenland's ice sheets, climate researchers drilling ice cores have made a discovery that has sent shockwaves through the paleontological community. Trapped within ice that formed millions of years ago, they found perfectly preserved specimens of microorganisms, unlike anything in the modern world. These aren't simple bacteria or viruses. They appear to be complex multicellular parasites with sophisticated life cycles. What makes these microscopic nightmares so disturbing is their apparent intelligence. Under laboratory conditions, they demonstrate problem-solving abilities and can modify their behavior based on environmental changes. Some specimens have even shown the ability to communicate with each other through chemical signals, coordinating their attacks on host organisms with frightening precision. The implications are staggering. If these parasites were common during the age of prehistoric monsters, they may have played a crucial role in shaping the evolution of ancient predators. Creatures that survived these microscopic nightmares would have developed immune systems and behavioral adaptations that we're only beginning to understand. This could explain why some prehistoric predators developed such extreme size and aggression. They weren't just competing with other creatures for food and territory. They were fighting an invisible war against microscopic invaders that could kill from within. Recent advances in genetic sequencing have allowed scientists to extract DNA fragments from fossils millions of years old. What they've discovered is that many prehistoric monsters possess genetic sequences that don't exist in any modern organism. These weren't evolutionary dead ends. They were successful adaptations to environmental pressures that no longer exist on Earth. Some of these genetic innovations are so advanced that modern biotechnology is still trying to understand how they functioned. Prehistoric predators developed biological systems that could process toxins, survive in oxygen-poor environments, and even regenerate lost limbs with remarkable speed. They were living chemical laboratories, constantly adapting and evolving to survive in a world far more hostile than anything we can imagine today. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery comes from fossil sites in remote regions of Antarctica. Here, beneath miles of ice, researchers have found evidence of prehistoric ecosystems that thrived in complete darkness. These weren't simple cave-dwelling creatures. They were complex predators that had evolved entirely separate sensory systems, hunting through echolocation, electromagnetic detection, and chemical sensing abilities that surpass anything in the modern world. The fossil evidence suggests that these dark adapted predators may have been even more successful than their surface-dwelling relatives. Protected from volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and climate change, they survived extinction events that wiped out everything else. Some scientists believe that descendants of these creatures may still exist in the deepest parts of our oceans, living in environments so hostile that we've never been able to explore them properly. This possibility has led to one of the most controversial theories in modern paleontology. What if the age of monsters never really ended? What if some of these prehistoric nightmares found ways to survive the Great Dying and continue to exist in hidden environments around the world? The deepest ocean trenches, underground cave systems, and polar ice sheets could be harboring creatures that make our worst prehistoric nightmares seem tame by comparison. Recent deep-sea expeditions have captured footage of creatures that don't match any known species. These aren't just new types of fish or invertebrates. They're predators with anatomical features that seem almost prehistoric in nature. Massive jaws filled with primitive teeth, sensory organs arranged in patterns that match ancient fossil specimens, and hunting behaviors that mirror those of creatures that supposedly went extinct millions of years ago. The technology we use to explore these hidden environments is still primitive compared to the vastness of unexplored territory on our planet. We've mapped less than 5% of the ocean floor, explored virtually none of the deepest cave systems, and have no idea what lies beneath the polar ice caps. If prehistoric monsters did find ways to survive the Great Dying, these are exactly the places where they would hide. What makes this possibility even more chilling is that these modern descendants wouldn't be primitive relics struggling to survive in a changed world. They would be the products of millions of years of additional evolution, becoming even more sophisticated and deadly than their ancient ancestors. They would possess all the predatory innovations developed during the Age of Monsters, refined and perfected through countless generations of natural selection. The implications for humanity are staggering. Our species evolved in a world where the largest predators were relatively small and manageable. We developed technologies and societies based on the assumption that we were the apex predators on our planet. But if creatures rivaling the prehistoric monsters still exist in hidden environments, our entire understanding of our place in the natural world would need to be reconsidered. Recent incidents around the world have fueled speculation that such creatures may already be making contact with human civilization. Deep-sea fishing vessels have reported encounters with predators far larger than any known species. Cave exploration teams have discovered bite marks and claw scratches that don't match any modern animal. Even satellite imagery has captured unexplained movements in remote polar regions, suggesting the presence of large, unknown creatures beneath the ice. The scientific community remains divided on these reports. Mainstream researchers dismiss them as misidentifications or hoaxes, arguing that creatures of such size and predatory capability couldn't remain hidden in the modern world. But a growing number of specialists in ancient life are beginning to take these possibilities seriously, launching expeditions to investigate the most promising leads. Here at Ancient Dreams, Sir, we've been following these developments closely, and what we've uncovered is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. The evidence may be fragmentary and controversial, but it points to a truth that challenges everything we thought we knew about the history of life on Earth. The Age of Monsters may not have ended 252 million years ago. It may have simply moved underground, into the depths of our oceans, and into the frozen wastelands where human eyes have never looked. As we continue to explore the deepest mysteries of our planet's past, we're forced to confront the possibility that the most terrifying predators in Earth's history are not safely buried in stone, but are still out there, evolved beyond our worst nightmares, waiting in the darkness of unexplored worlds. The monsters that ruled Earth before the dinosaurs may have been more successful at survival than we ever imagined, adapting to every catastrophe our planet could throw at them. The story of prehistoric monsters is far from over. In fact, it may be entering its most frightening chapter yet. The evidence we've uncovered suggests that these surviving lineages didn't just hide away in remote corners of our planet. They actively evolved, developing capabilities that would make their prehistoric ancestors seem primitive by comparison. In the crushing depths of ocean trenches, where pressure would instantly kill any surface-dwelling creature, these modern descendants have thrived for millions of years in complete isolation. What emerges from the darkness of these hidden worlds is something far more sophisticated than the monsters we've already discussed. These creatures have had over 250 million years to perfect their predatory strategies, to develop new sensory capabilities, and to adapt to environments so extreme that they exist beyond the reach of human exploration. The result is a lineage of predators that combines the raw power of their ancient ancestors with evolutionary innovations we're only beginning to comprehend. Recent deep-sea research missions have captured acoustic signatures that don't match any known marine life. These aren't the simple calls of whales or dolphins. They're complex, structured communications that suggest advanced intelligence and coordinated behavior. Some recordings reveal multi-layered vocalizations that seem to carry different types of information simultaneously, indicating a level of communication sophistication that rivals human language. The most disturbing aspect of these acoustic discoveries is their geographic distribution. The signals have been detected in ocean trenches across the globe, from the Mariana Trench in the Pacific to the Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic. This suggests not just isolated populations of unknown creatures, but a worldwide network of predators that have maintained contact across vast oceanic distances for millions of years. Marine biologists analyzing these recordings have identified hunting patterns that seem almost impossibly complex. The creatures appear to use coordinated acoustic signals to drive prey into specific areas, creating underwater kill zones where escape becomes impossible. This level of tactical coordination exceeds anything observed in modern marine predators and suggests intelligence levels that challenge our understanding of non-human cognition. But the ocean depths aren't the only place where these evolutionary survivors may have found refuge. Beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, ground-penetrating radar has revealed vast networks of liquid water lakes and rivers that have remained isolated from the surface world for millions of years. These subglacial environments maintain constant temperatures and contain unique chemical compositions that could support life forms unlike anything on the surface. Recent drilling projects attempting to sample these hidden Antarctic lakes have encountered unexpected resistance. Drill bits designed to cut through solid rock have been damaged by what appears to be organic material of incredible hardness. When samples were finally retrieved, they contained biological compounds that don't match any known life forms, suggesting the presence of creatures with biochemistry fundamentally different from surface life. The implications are staggering when you consider the timeline involved. These Antarctic lakes have been sealed beneath miles of ice since before the first mammals appeared on Earth. Any life forms that survived in these environments would represent an unbroken evolutionary lineage stretching back to the age of prehistoric monsters. They would be living fossils, but fossils that have continued to evolve and adapt in complete isolation from the rest of the world. Temperature readings from these subglacial lakes reveal anomalous heat signatures that suggest large-scale biological activity. The thermal patterns don't match geological sources like volcanic vents or radioactive decay. Instead, they appear to be generated by massive biological processes, possibly the metabolic activity of creatures so large that their body heat is warming entire lake systems. Ground-penetrating sonar has detected movement patterns within these lakes that defy conventional explanation. Objects the size of subway trains move through the water with speed and agility that would be impossible for any known marine creature. These movements follow complex patterns that suggest intelligence and purpose, not the random wandering of simple organisms. What makes the Antarctic discoveries even more unsettling is their connection to ancient fossil sites. The locations of these hidden lakes correspond almost exactly with regions where the largest and most sophisticated prehistoric predators once lived. It's as if these creatures didn't disappear during the Great Dying, but instead retreated into underground sanctuaries where they could survive the apocalyptic conditions on the surface. Cave systems around the world have yielded similar evidence of surviving prehistoric lineages. In the deepest explored caverns, researchers have discovered bite marks and claw scratches that exceed the size and power of any known modern predator. These aren't ancient fossils, but fresh markings that suggest active predators still inhabit the deepest parts of our planet's underground networks. The Krubera Cave in Georgia, currently the deepest known cave system on Earth, has provided some of the most compelling evidence. At depths exceeding 7,000 feet below the surface, exploration teams have found organic remains that radiocarbon dating places at less than 1,000 years old. These aren't the bones of surface animals that somehow fell into the cave system. They're the remains of creatures with anatomical features that match prehistoric predators from hundreds of millions of years ago. What's particularly disturbing about these cave discoveries is the evidence of ongoing predatory activity. Fresh kill sites have been found at depths where no known surface predator could survive. The dismemberment patterns and bone damage suggest creatures with bite forces and claw strength that exceed anything in the modern world. These aren't scavenging activities, but active hunting behaviors taking place in environments completely cut off from surface ecosystems. Advanced spelunking teams equipped with the latest underground exploration technology have reported encounters that defy rational explanation. Motion sensors detect movement of massive objects in caverns too deep for any surface creature to reach. Thermal imaging reveals heat signatures, suggesting creatures with body masses comparable to large dinosaurs, but with metabolic rates indicating they're very much alive and active. The acoustic properties of these deep cave systems have revealed another layer of mystery. Sound travels differently in the complex geometry of underground networks, but sensitive equipment has detected vocalizations that seem to originate from creatures of enormous size. These aren't echoes or geological sounds, but complex acoustic patterns that suggest communication between multiple large predators. Here at Ancient Dreamser, we've been tracking these discoveries across multiple research disciplines, and the pattern that emerges is both fascinating and deeply troubling. Every major exploration of Earth's most remote and inaccessible environments has yielded evidence of large, unknown predators that share characteristics with creatures that supposedly went extinct millions of years ago. The technology we're using to explore these hidden worlds is advancing rapidly, but it's still primitive compared to the vastness of unexplored territory on our planet. We estimate that less than 1% of Earth's deep cave systems have been explored beyond their entrance chambers. The deepest parts of our oceans remain as mysterious as the surface of Mars. And beneath the polar ice caps lie environments that may have remained unchanged since the age of prehistoric monsters. What makes this situation even more compelling is the convergent evolution we see in these hidden environments. Creatures living in completely separate ecosystems, whether in ocean trenches, subglacial lakes, or deep cave systems, all seem to have developed similar adaptations that mirror those of their prehistoric ancestors. This isn't coincidence, but evolutionary pressure selecting for the most effective predatory traits. The sensory capabilities of these modern descendants appear to far exceed those of their ancient relatives. Living in environments of complete darkness has driven the evolution of acoustic and electromagnetic sensing abilities that would seem supernatural to surface-dwelling creatures. They can detect the electrical fields generated by living organisms, track prey through microscopic chemical traces, and navigate complex three-dimensional environments using echolocation systems more sophisticated than any human technology. Recent advances in genetic analysis have allowed scientists to study DNA fragments extracted from these hidden environments, and the results are revolutionary. These creatures possess genetic sequences that haven't been seen in surface life for over 200 million years, but combined with modern evolutionary adaptations that make them more capable than any prehistoric predator we know from the fossil record. The metabolic efficiency of these deep-dwelling predators represents a quantum leap beyond their ancient ancestors. Living in environments with limited food sources has driven the evolution of energy conservation strategies that allow them to remain active for extended periods between feeding opportunities. Some estimates suggest they could survive for decades without feeding, lying dormant in the darkness until prey becomes available. But perhaps most disturbing of all is the evidence that these creatures may not be content to remain hidden in their remote sanctuaries. Climate change and human exploration activities are altering the environments where these predators have lived undisturbed for millions of years. Melting polar ice is opening new pathways between their hidden worlds and surface ecosystems. Deep-sea mining operations are penetrating ocean trenches that have never been disturbed by surface activity. The consequences of these environmental changes could be catastrophic for human civilization. We've built our entire society around the assumption that we're the dominant predators on our planet. Our cities, transportation systems, and agricultural networks are all designed without considering the possibility of predators capable of threatening human populations on a massive scale. Military analysts who have been briefed on these discoveries have expressed concern about the implications for national security. If creatures comparable to the largest prehistoric predators still exist in hidden environments, their emergence into surface ecosystems could destabilize entire regions. The predatory capabilities we've discussed would make them immune to conventional weapons and defensive strategies, but the threat may extend beyond simple predation. the intelligence levels suggested by acoustic analysis and behavioral observations indicate creatures capable of learning, adapting, and possibly even strategic thinking. They wouldn't be mindless monsters, driven only by hunger, but sophisticated predators capable of assessing threats and opportunities with remarkable precision. The ecological impact of their emergence would be equally devastating. Modern ecosystems have evolved without pressure from apex predators of this magnitude. The introduction of creatures with the size, intelligence, and predatory capabilities of prehistoric monsters would trigger cascade effects throughout food webs that have been stable for millions of years. Marine ecosystems would be particularly vulnerable. Ocean food chains are already under stress from human activities, and the introduction of predators capable of consuming entire schools of fish or pods of marine mammals would accelerate the collapse of fisheries worldwide. The economic implications alone would be sufficient to destabilize human civilization. Terrestrial ecosystems would face similar challenges. Large herbivore populations that currently have no effective natural predators would become prey species for creatures they have no evolutionary adaptations to escape. Agricultural regions could become hunting grounds for predators that view livestock and crops as readily available food sources. The psychological impact on human populations could be even more severe than the direct physical threats. Our species has developed a sense of security based on our position at the top of the food chain. The knowledge that creatures capable of hunting humans exist in hidden environments around the world would fundamentally alter how we perceive our relationship with the natural world. Recent surveys of remote indigenous populations have revealed oral traditions that may provide clues about historical encounters with these surviving predators. Stories passed down through generations describe creatures that match the anatomical features and behaviors of prehistoric monsters, suggesting that contact between humans and these hidden predators may have occurred more recently than scientific evidence indicates. These traditional accounts describe creatures emerging from deep caves during periods of environmental stress, hunting in coordinated groups with intelligence that rivals human tactical thinking. The stories are remarkably consistent across different cultures and geographic regions, suggesting they may be based on actual encounters rather than mythological constructs. Archaeological evidence from certain remote sites supports the possibility of recent contact between humans and large unknown predators. Defensive structures in locations far from any known threats, weapons designed for creatures much larger than any modern predator, and settlement patterns that suggest populations fleeing from specific geographic areas all point to the possibility that our ancestors may have faced threats we've forgotten about in recorded history. The implications for human evolution are equally profound. If our species developed alongside surviving prehistoric predators, many of our behavioral and physiological traits may represent adaptations to threats that still exist in hidden environments. Our capacity for fear, our tendency toward group cooperation, and our development of advanced weapons technology may all have been shaped by evolutionary pressures from predators that mainstream science believes to be extinct. This perspective completely changes how we interpret human history and development. Instead of being the story of a species that conquered its environment through intelligence and technology, it becomes the story of a species that survived by learning to hide from and occasionally defend against threats too powerful to confront directly. As we continue to explore the deepest mysteries of our planet, we're forced to confront the possibility that the age of monsters never ended, but simply moved beyond the reach of human observation. The creatures that ruled Earth before the dinosaurs may have been more adaptable and successful than we ever imagined, surviving every catastrophe our planet could produce and continuing to evolve in hidden sanctuaries around the world. The evidence suggests we may be living on a planet where the most successful predators in Earth's history are still active, still evolving, and still perfectly capable of reclaiming their position as the dominant life forms on our world. They've had over 250 million years to perfect their hunting strategies and develop capabilities that would make their prehistoric ancestors seem primitive by comparison. What we've uncovered challenges everything we thought we knew about the history of life on Earth and our place within it. The monsters that terrorized ancient seas and prehistoric landscapes may not be safely buried in stone, but could be waiting in the darkness of unexplored worlds, more sophisticated and deadly than ever before. As exploration technology advances and environmental changes open new pathways between their hidden sanctuaries and surface ecosystems, we may soon discover that humanity's greatest challenge isn't conquering space or curing disease, but learning to coexist with predators that have ruled our planet since long before our species existed. The age of prehistoric monsters may be entering its most dangerous phase yet, and we may be completely unprepared for what's coming. The question that haunts researchers around the world isn't whether these creatures still exist, but how many different species have survived in complete isolation, evolving into forms that would make their ancient predecessors look like harmless pets by comparison. What we're beginning to understand is that the Great Dying wasn't an ending, but a selection event, eliminating the weak while driving the most adaptable predators into environments where they could not just survive, but thrive beyond our wildest imagination. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert, geological surveys have detected vast underground water systems that have remained stable for over 200 million years. These aren't simple aquifers, but complex networks of interconnected lakes and rivers that stretch across thousands of square miles. What makes these discoveries particularly unsettling is the evidence of large-scale biological activity within these hidden water systems. Seismic monitoring equipment has recorded rhythmic vibrations that originate from these underground lakes, patterns that suggest the movement of creatures so massive that their swimming creates tremors detectable from the surface. The frequency and intensity of these vibrations indicate predators that dwarf even the largest prehistoric monsters we've discussed, creatures that have had millions of years to grow and adapt in environments with virtually unlimited space and resources. Temperature readings from these subterranean systems reveal thermal anomalies that can only be explained by the metabolic activity of enormous organisms. The heat signatures suggest creatures with body masses comparable to blue whales, but with metabolic rates indicating they're active predators rather than passive filter feeders. The energy requirements for sustaining such creatures would demand hunting strategies of incredible efficiency and sophistication. Recent drilling operations attempting to access these underground water systems have encountered unexpected resistance that goes beyond simple geological barriers. Drill bits have been damaged by what appears to be organic material, with hardness exceeding that of most metals. When samples were finally retrieved from these depths, they contained biological compounds that don't exist in any surface organism, suggesting biochemistry that has evolved along completely different pathways. The chemical composition of water samples from these underground systems tells a story of predatory activity on a scale that defies comprehension. Concentrations of organic compounds indicate the processing of massive amounts of biological material, suggesting feeding behaviors that involve the consumption of entire ecosystems. These aren't the chemical signatures of scavenging or opportunistic feeding, but evidence of systematic predation carried out by creatures capable of harvesting life on an industrial scale. What makes the Saharan discoveries even more disturbing is their connection to historical accounts from desert nomads. For centuries, Bedouin tribes have told stories of sounds emerging from beneath the sand during the darkest nights, deep rumbling calls that seem to come from creatures of unimaginable size. These accounts describe vibrations so powerful that they can be felt through the ground from miles away, and sound so alien that they inspire terror in even the most experienced desert travelers. Archaeological evidence from ancient Egyptian sites provides additional clues about possible contact between early human civilizations and these underground predators. Hieroglyphic texts describe creatures emerging from beneath the earth during times of great drought, monsters with capabilities that exceed even the most fearsome gods in their pantheon. These aren't mythological constructs, but detailed descriptions that match the anatomical features of prehistoric predators. The construction techniques used in certain ancient monuments suggest defensive purposes that go far beyond protection from human enemies or surface predators. Massive stone blocks arranged in patterns that would be effective against creatures attacking from below, underground chambers designed to detect seismic activity, and acoustic properties that would amplify warning signals across vast distances all point to civilizations that understood threats from beneath the earth. But the underground sanctuaries beneath the Sahara are just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Similar discoveries have been made in underground systems beneath the Amazon rainforest, where ground-penetrating radar has revealed networks of flooded caverns that extend for hundreds of miles beneath the jungle floor. These hidden rivers and lakes have maintained stable ecosystems completely isolated from surface activity for geological periods that span the entire age of mammals. The biodiversity within these Amazonian underground systems appears to be extraordinary, with acoustic monitoring detecting the calls of creatures that don't match any known species. But scattered among the sounds of smaller organisms are vocalizations that suggest the presence of apex predators with vocal capabilities that exceed those of any surface animal. These aren't simple roars or calls, but complex acoustic patterns that indicate sophisticated communication systems. Brazilian researchers conducting these underground surveys have reported equipment failures that follow patterns similar to those experienced in other remote exploration sites. Electronic devices malfunction when they approach certain underground chambers, suggesting the presence of creatures capable of generating electromagnetic fields powerful enough to disrupt modern technology. This biological electromagnetic capability would provide these predators with sensory abilities that surpass anything in the natural world. The hunting territories of these underground Amazonian predators appear to be vast, with acoustic triangulation suggesting individual creatures that patrol areas covering hundreds of square miles. The energy requirements for maintaining such large territories would demand prey sources that could sustain predators of enormous size and sophisticated hunting capabilities. The abundance of life in these hidden ecosystems could support predatory hierarchies that rival anything that existed during the age of prehistoric monsters. Recent discoveries in the underground systems beneath Siberia have revealed perhaps the most compelling evidence yet of surviving prehistoric lineages. The permanently frozen ground in this region has preserved environments that date back to before the Great Dying, creating time capsules where ancient ecosystems may have survived intact for hundreds of millions of years. Ground-penetrating surveys have detected vast networks of liquid water beneath the permafrost, maintained at stable temperatures by geothermal activity. The Siberian underground systems show evidence of predatory activity that dwarfs anything discovered in other hidden environments. Seismic monitoring has recorded impacts that suggest creatures capable of generating force equivalent to small earthquakes when they attack prey. The frequency and distribution of these seismic events indicate hunting behaviors that involve multiple massive predators working in coordination across territories that span entire continents. Acoustic analysis of sounds emerging from these Siberian underground systems has revealed communication patterns that suggest intelligence levels comparable to those of advanced social predators. The calls are structured in ways that indicate information transfer about hunting strategies, territorial boundaries, and prey movements. This level of communication sophistication would allow these creatures to coordinate hunting activities across vast distances and multiple underground territories. What makes the Siberian discoveries particularly significant is their timing relative to surface environmental changes. The frequency of seismic and acoustic activity from these underground systems has increased dramatically in recent decades, coinciding with climate change effects that are altering the stability of permafrost layers. As surface temperatures rise and frozen barriers begin to thaw, pathways may be opening between these hidden sanctuaries and surface ecosystems. Satellite thermal imaging of remote Siberian regions has detected heat signatures that correspond to the locations of underground activity. These thermal anomalies appear to be moving closer to the surface over time, suggesting that whatever creatures inhabit these systems may be responding to environmental changes by exploring new territories. The implications for surface ecosystems and human populations in these regions could be catastrophic. Here at Ancient Dreamser, we've been analyzing data from multiple underground exploration projects around the world, and the patterns that emerge paint a picture of our planet that challenges everything mainstream science teaches about the history of life. Rather than being dominated by surface ecosystems that we can observe and study, Earth appears to be a world where the most successful and sophisticated life forms exist in hidden environments that we're only beginning to discover. The evidence suggests that these underground predators haven't remained static since the Great Dying, but have continued to evolve and adapt in ways that make them more capable than their prehistoric ancestors. Living in environments with unique selective pressures has driven the development of capabilities that seem almost supernatural compared to surface life. Enhanced sensory systems, electromagnetic field generation, and metabolic efficiency that allows for extended periods of dormancy, followed by bursts of incredible activity. The geographic distribution of these underground systems indicates that they're connected by pathways that allow for genetic exchange between populations separated by thousands of miles. This connectivity has prevented the genetic isolation that typically leads to evolutionary dead ends, instead creating a worldwide network of interbreeding populations that maintain the genetic diversity necessary for continued adaptation and evolution. Recent advances in deep drilling technology have allowed researchers to obtain biological samples from depths that were previously impossible to reach. The genetic material recovered from these samples tells a story of evolutionary success that spans hundreds of millions of years. These creatures possess genetic sequences that have been refined through countless generations of natural selection in environments that eliminated every weakness and enhanced every predatory advantage. The metabolic capabilities revealed through genetic analysis suggest creatures that can survive in conditions that would instantly kill any surface organism. Tolerance for extreme pressure, ability to process toxic compounds, and capacity for surviving without oxygen for extended periods all point to predators that have adapted to environments far more challenging than anything on the surface. These adaptations would make them virtually invulnerable to most threats that could emerge from surface ecosystems. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the genetic evidence is what it reveals about intelligence and behavioral complexity. The neural development patterns indicated by genetic sequences suggest creatures with cognitive capabilities that could rival or exceed those of the most intelligent surface animals. This intelligence, combined with the physical capabilities we've discussed, would create predators unlike anything in recorded history. The implications for human civilization become even more serious when we consider the environmental changes that are currently altering these hidden ecosystems. Climate change, deep mining operations, and geothermal energy projects are all penetrating environments that have remained undisturbed for millions of years. As we intrude into these sanctuaries, we risk triggering responses from creatures that view human activity as a threat to territories they've defended since before our species existed. Military strategists who have been briefed on these discoveries have begun developing contingency plans for scenarios involving the emergence of large unknown predators from underground environments. The capabilities we've discussed would make conventional weapons largely ineffective, and the intelligence levels suggested by behavioral analysis indicate creatures capable of learning from encounters and adapting their strategies accordingly. The economic implications are equally staggering. Major infrastructure projects around the world are located in areas where underground predator activity has been detected. Transportation networks, energy facilities, and urban centers could all be vulnerable to creatures emerging from hidden sanctuaries beneath them. The cost of redesigning human infrastructure to account for these threats would exceed the resources of most nations. Agricultural regions face particular vulnerability from underground predators. Modern farming techniques have created concentrated food sources that would be attractive targets for creatures accustomed to the limited resources of underground ecosystems. The emergence of even a small number of these predators into agricultural areas could trigger food shortages that would affect billions of people. The psychological impact on human populations could be even more destabilizing than the direct physical threats. Our entire conception of safety and security is based on the assumption that we understand the threats in our environment. The knowledge that creatures capable of emerging from beneath our feet exist in hidden networks around the world would fundamentally alter human behavior and social organization. Recent analysis of insurance claims and missing persons reports from remote areas has revealed patterns that may indicate contact between human populations and these underground predators. Disappearances in locations near known underground systems, damage to structures that exceeds the capabilities of any known surface predator, and witness accounts describing encounters with creatures that match prehistoric anatomical features all suggest that contact may be occurring more frequently than official records indicate. The reluctance of authorities to investigate these incidents seriously stems partly from the implications of confirming their authenticity. Acknowledging the existence of large unknown predators would require massive changes in public policy, emergency preparedness, and resource allocation that most governments are unprepared to implement. The economic and social disruption caused by such acknowledgement could be severe enough to destabilize entire regions. But denial of the evidence won't make these creatures disappear or prevent their eventual emergence into surface ecosystems. Environmental pressures and human intrusion into their territories are creating conditions that may force these predators to seek new hunting grounds and expand their territorial ranges. The longer we delay preparing for this possibility, the more catastrophic the consequences are likely to be. The research community studying these phenomena remains divided between those who believe the evidence demands immediate action and those who argue for more data before drawing conclusions. This academic debate consumes valuable time, while environmental changes continue to alter the stability of the underground systems where these creatures have remained hidden for millions of years. Recent technological advances have provided new tools for studying these hidden ecosystems without directly disturbing them. Passive acoustic monitoring, satellite thermal imaging, and electromagnetic field detection allow researchers to gather data about underground predator activity without the risks associated with direct exploration. The information gathered through these methods is painting an increasingly clear picture of predatory activity that exceeds anything in the fossil record. The acoustic signatures detected through passive monitoring reveal hunting behaviors that demonstrate remarkable sophistication and coordination. Multiple large predators working together to corner prey, communication patterns that indicate strategic planning, and territorial behaviors that suggest complex social hierarchies all point to intelligence levels that challenge our understanding of non-human cognition. Electromagnetic field monitoring has detected bioelectrical activity from these underground systems that exceeds anything known in surface organisms. The patterns suggest creatures capable of generating and manipulating electrical fields for communication, navigation, and possibly even stunning prey. This biological electrical capability would provide these predators with sensory and offensive capabilities that seem almost technological in their sophistication. Thermal imaging from satellite platforms has revealed heat signatures moving through underground networks with speed and purpose that indicate active predatory behavior. The thermal patterns suggest creatures with metabolic rates that allow for sustained high-speed movement, followed by periods of apparent dormancy. This boom and bust activity pattern would be ideal for predators operating in environments with irregular prey availability. The coordination between thermal signatures in different underground systems suggests communication and coordination across vast distances. Predatory activity detected beneath the Sahara appears to be synchronized with similar activity in Siberian underground systems thousands of miles away. This level of coordination would require communication capabilities that span continents and organizational abilities that rival human military planning. Here at Ancient Dreamser, we believe the evidence has reached a tipping point where the existence of these underground predator networks can no longer be dismissed as speculation or misinterpretation of natural phenomena. The convergent evidence from multiple research disciplines, the consistency of reports from different geographic regions, and the increasing frequency of detected activity all point to a reality that mainstream science has been reluctant to acknowledge. The creatures that ruled Earth before the dinosaurs didn't disappear during the Great Dying. They adapted, survived, and continued to evolve in hidden sanctuaries where they developed capabilities that make their prehistoric ancestors seem primitive by comparison. These modern descendants combine the raw predatory power of ancient monsters with millions of years of additional evolutionary refinement, creating apex predators unlike anything in recorded history. As environmental changes and human expansion continue to intrude into their hidden territories, the possibility of large-scale contact between these underground predators and surface ecosystems becomes increasingly likely. When that contact occurs, humanity will face challenges that our species has never encountered and may be fundamentally unprepared to handle. The age of prehistoric monsters never ended. It simply moved beyond our sight, waiting in the darkness beneath our feet for the right moment to reclaim the surface world they once ruled with absolute dominance. The truth we've uncovered here at Ancient Dreams forces us to confront a reality that challenges everything we thought we knew about our world. The monsters that terrorized Earth for over 300 million years before the first dinosaur ever existed weren't primitive evolutionary experiments stumbling toward extinction. They were sophisticated apex predators, perfectly designed killing machines that possessed capabilities modern science is only beginning to understand. From the circular nightmare mouth of Anomalocaris slicing through Cambrian seas, to the bone-crushing jaws of Dunkleosteus turning Devonian oceans into killing fields, to the pack-hunting intelligence of Gorgonopsids that dominated Permian landscapes, these creatures represent evolutionary perfection in predatory design. They didn't just survive for hundreds of millions of years by accident. They thrived because they were better at being predators than anything our modern world has ever produced. But perhaps the most unsettling revelation is that their story may not have ended with the Great Dying 252 million years ago. The evidence emerging from the deepest corners of our planet suggests that these prehistoric nightmares found ways to survive, adapting to hidden environments where they've continued to evolve for hundreds of millions of years beyond their supposed extinction. Or in the crushing depths of ocean trenches, beneath miles of Antarctic ice, and in vast underground networks that span continents, creatures that make their ancient ancestors look primitive may still rule territories larger than entire nations. They've had over 250 million years to perfect their predatory strategies, develop new capabilities, and grow to sizes that would dwarf even the largest dinosaurs. As we continue to push the boundaries of exploration and environmental change alters the stability of these hidden sanctuaries, we may soon discover that humanity's greatest challenge isn't exploring space or conquering disease. It may be learning to coexist with predators that have ruled our planet since long before our species existed. Creatures that view us not as the dominant life form on Earth, but simply as the latest addition to their ancient hunting grounds. The age of monsters may be far from over. It may be entering its most dangerous chapter yet.